Hey guys, Matt, IronTrap Garage. We're back working on the Sweet Heart Roadster door project where we're building a door from scratch, and I am diving in super deep, showing you guys every little detail as I'm going along building this. Hopefully it'll give you guys some ideas when you're building custom parts like this where you can save money and you have time, you can do something like this. And in my case, I'm just trying to basically test my skills and try and get a little bit better at metalworking. So what we're gonna work on next is kind of just buttoning up the last of the inner door structure as far as tipping the last edges, putting the box tubing in for the kind of the hoop and a crash bar across the center, and then of course getting our little brace spot welded in place and all that stuff so we can basically move on to getting the door skin built in the next video. So let's get started. All right, so we got our door latch brace all cleaned up, and I sprayed the back side of it and also the inside of the inner door structure with some self-etching weld-through primer from Eastwood. So that stuff works really good that we can weld around it and it doesn't cause a problem. It's gonna seal up both surfaces so they don't rust from the inside out. One of the things I did kind of off camera is I took my stump, yes, a tree stump that I have my anvil on, and I hammer on a little bit. I used the stump with a blocking hammer and a pick hammer to actually knock in this little bulge in the panel here so that we can work our door latch securely or easily so that it actually springs back. And you can see this little section here. I knocked that up, and the reason I used the wood stump is because it actually has some give. So when you hammer on the metal, it is more firm on the back side because it's wood than a sandbag would be. So it was a little easier to hammer and bring this little shape into it. And it has a little bit of give, so that's why I did that. Looks real good. The other thing I did was I punched out those holes with the hole punch from Eastwood, and we are ready to go to actually spot weld this to the inner door structure. So what I like to do is after you spray on the self-etching weld-through primer, with a MIG welder you can weld through that and it works okay, but with a TIG it just does not work at all. So what you need with TIG welding is clean metal where you're actually welding the surface. So what I like to do is take a little pointed carbide burr, and I have a 3/16 hole that I punched in here. I take this little carbide burr with a blunted tip, and I like to stick it in there and actually just hit the trigger a little bit and just take off the area where we're doing the welding. You can use an awl or something to scratch it, it doesn't really matter, but you can go through and do this with the carbide burr. Scratch off the primer that's in there so you can get a good clean weld, and we can actually get this plug welded using a TIG welder. Since I already have it next to me from doing all this stuff here, it's just as easy to go that route. So I'm gonna get this tack welded in place, or spot welded rather, and then I'm gonna actually put a couple little beads around the nuts here so that they are affixed to our brace so that we can take the latch in and off without me having to fish around for these nuts. so now that I got the door latch stuff all taken care of and that's good to go, we're ready to start working on this top section of the inner door structure. This is actually a pretty important part of the process for making this door because we're going to be establishing this like upsweep here in the door, that profile, right now, because we're going to be basically building this door skin off of that. So we need to actually create this kind of sweep with what we're doing with folding this edge over, which we have to do in the bead roller like we did on some of this other stuff. So working on getting some measurements and working off the beads and standing back a lot and kind of looking at dashes and stuff. So I think we got to figure it out now. We're going to try and use this little sweep here where the body line sweeps up. We're going to try and use that, copy that, use some paper to pattern it and put it on some chipboard to create the same thing. We're going to actually move this sweep right here back a little bit to make it more of like a gradual sweep. So we're going to try and move this around a little bit with the restyling that we're doing. That's some of those little things that'll make it more of like a gradual up sweep. So we're going to play with some of that, dial it in, and then we should be able to actually tip this edge on the bead roller. And then we'll be just about done with all the bending of the edges and cutting everything out. Okay. All right, you ready?
I guess.
You're gonna stand back here. Yep. So you just grab that corner as a. If you have to go up over the tire a little bit, that's okay.
We should clear.
Hit that.
If it would trimmed on our mark, would have been okay.
Oh yeah, we tried it.
Yeah.
Oh
There's
God.
shears are over on the table.
This is where if it was a TV show, they cut and then re-edit it so it looked like you did it perfect.
I'm still gonna do that.
No, you're not gonna show this? I'll show it.
Just kidding.
Show my F-ups. I'm just some dude. All right.
Try this again. Cut. Take two.
It's still really close. I'm gonna have to cut more. I'm gonna have to cut more to keep doing that bend.
Yeah.
So I have to. I'm actually gonna have to take. All right. So this time,
Put some pressure up.
yeah, we're gonna put some pressure up. Want me to go in the wrong direction. I may have to do the rest by hand.
You can get a little bit more out of it.
I'm gonna have to keep cutting this flange. It's got the line started.
Yeah.
Oh boy. We're getting like our last, these are real tight. Our last couple of, that screws, zip screw has had it.
Yeah.
This needs a little,
Down. It's like up.
I can fix that. Right about starting like right in there.
Yeah. Stop.
And up here it's actually, it's actually down there.
It doesn't look bad at all. I like the way that looks. Yeah, it sucks having a full fender car. Having to walk all the way around.
I know. Yeah, I like where that lands.
It does.
It's a nice,
Yeah.
subtle. Cool. All right, another step done. All right, so what Mike and I did in the meantime after we got that edge bent is we sprayed self-etching weld-through primer on our box tubing section. It's like basically our hinge brace, if you want to call it that, where our hinge is attached. And we sprayed it on the inside of the inner structure as well. We still have our zip screw that locates us, and we have our tool holes down here for taking the hinge off that locates us as well. And I again went through, took a bit and cleaned off the metal right where we're going to be welding, so I can go down and plug weld all these. I put a bunch of plug welds in just so I can get plenty of plug welds so we make sure that it's nice and strong. So I'm going to work my way down. I'll plug weld, move the clamp, and keep clamping everything nice and tight together so the skin is very tight when we're actually welding it along. right, so I'm working on filling in this inner corner here. I made a little patch that basically filled in the corner here, and what I'm doing may look a little odd. I started welding here and then realized I should probably explain myself. So I'm actually welding from the inside actually out. The reason I'm doing that is I wanted to get a good solid weld here. I'm actually going a little too hot on my weld on the inside. What that does, it pushes through to the outside and gets a full penetration, and then I don't have to grind so much on the outside corner. I can just basically dust it with a DA sander and it'll pretty much be fine. When you weld it on the inside like this, I go in and I add a little bit thicker rod than I normally would, and I actually blend it in and kind of weave back and forth after I put the weld down, and that allows me to really melt the weld in, and then it gives me full penetration on what would be the back side, which is the side you see in this case. And then I can, like I said, just dust it with the sander, and this little bit in here isn't a big deal. We're not actually grinding that down because it's going to be hidden by a skin. You would attack this differently depending on the panel. If you could see this weld, then you have to grind both sides and it may act differently. But for here, it works pretty well because I can put that weld on the inside corner here, and then when we're sanding, it's not as we're not grinding away all the weld. Look, Ma, no clamps, no screws, no extra help. This is a big thing here. So super excited. I got all these corners welded in those last couple shots. Worked out really well. I wanted to kind of fill you guys in on what I decided to do as we went throughout this, because in the beginning of the video, I was saying how we were going to get box tubing and fit all that in, and even when we were doing this, folding this edge here for the top of the door, I was talking about that. Well, what happened is I cut a bunch of box tubing before I welded these corners in, and I fit the box tubing up, and I was kind of messing with it, getting, making bends and stuff in it to try and fit it. I got everything clamped in place, and the door felt like really, really heavy. It just felt kind of unnecessary. I think this tubing is like 1/8 wall tubing, which is, good for this door jamb section. Is really good because you could drill and tap into it. It's very structurally strong, which is great for the hinge area, so you don't have any issue with it there. But when I started adding all that to the door, it got like really, really heavy, and I got a little bit worried with the weight of the door on these little tiny hinges. It might be a little too much. So I decided to kind of like rethink that, and I decided to move on and work on the corners, these bottom corners here, for the rest of the video. And what I noted, that the main reason I was trying to add that bracing was the door had like a pop to it, so I thought basically I needed to add some of that bracing just to sort of lock it in place. But as you can see, it pops right back to where we want it to be, to the shape. Before I would pop it this way and it would like pop out the opposite way, which, you know, obviously was a problem. So I was gonna weld that bracing in to kind of keep it locked how it wanted, but I didn't think, you know, again, I'm still kind of a beginner at this stuff. It didn't dawn on me that because I had these two corners open here, it was allowing the door to flop back and forth because those corners were weak and open, so you could pop it back and forth. So what I noticed was, as I started to weld this first corner in and got it tacked in, I was like, wow, the door feels like stronger or more solid. So then I welded this other corner in, and now, like I said, the door has a pop, but it goes right back to where we want it. And as you guys may remember in the video I did on Aaron's Roadster, where I was fixing a bunch of those panels, doing more of like restoration type work, I pulled off the door skin, and because his door was all messed up, I had to like wrench on his door and tweak it super hard, which is normal. So these doors do have flex when there's no skin on it, because the skin, once wrapped around, pretty much is like a structural element of the door. So I've decided to leave the box tubing out and just have my box tubing that's spot welded, and eventually will be like the skin folded over it and everything like that. And I think it's pretty good. It definitely feels solid now. Like I said, this little pop, it goes right back to where I want it. Everything latches really, really nicely, and you know, overall, I'm really happy with it. It's all kind of going in the direction we need. And now that I have these corners pretty much done, the only thing I didn't do to the inner structure yet is this edge right here that needs to fold outward. I did it on the bottom corner here that I was fixing up, but I didn't do here. So I need to take the door off and probably hammer that edge over to get it so that it's going in the right direction. So I have room to like put our skin around. I trimmed the top a little bit, but it needs just a tiny bit more work that I'm going to do off camera, or as we're building the skin I may make a decision on what I do there. But pretty much now everything's going in the right direction. In the next update on this car, I should be able to start working on the skin. So that is my long-winded kind of update on what's going on the car. It's going to be a small little, a little bit of time till we do the next big update on the car, because what I've decided to do is work on the other door and get the other door to this point, and then I'm going to kind of do the skins at the same time, because there's a lot of stuff that I did in the door that I'm going to forget if I skin this door. I'm going to totally forget by the time I get to the other side. So rather than do that, I'm going to work on getting the inner structure on the other side all figured out, and that way I can have both at the kind of the same point, and then we can make the skins and everything will be fresh in my brain. I got so many projects I need to kind of like keep stuff in order like that, or I will totally forget because of the time period between working on stuff. So that's the update on Sweet Heart Roadster. Really happy I'm back working on this car. It is really fun to do some more creative type stuff and some metal fab that I haven't done in a little while. So I'm starting to get back into the groove of things, which is really cool, and I'm really having fun with this. So thank you guys for watching. Appreciate it. Catch you later.